This is Getting On with Life, Biblical Wisdom for Successful Christian Living. And this session is Don't Pigeonhole People. We all tend to feel most comfortable around things that are familiar, and that includes being around people who fit in with our ideas of what people should be like. When we see someone out of character to our normal world, we may be fascinated, but we also feel a little at a loss to know how to relate to them. Once we know more about them, we might feel more comfortable because we can put them into a familiar pigeonhole. Where I found myself going wrong over the years was categorizing people based on my limited ideas and experience. For example, I had little experience around old people or disabled people as I grew up. I had ideas about such people, but they were untested. I thought anyone over 60 was already planning their funeral. I thought disabled people, or the deaf or blind, were unable to really connect with life. I thought of old people as irrelevant and out of touch. I thought of sick people as only needing sympathy, and so on. I can think of various situations where I was surprised by people who didn't fit the profile or pigeonhole I wanted to put them in. I was ignorant and had to realize that bit by bit. On one occasion, while at Bible college, I preached at a church several hours away from campus. I greeted the people before the service and noted that they were generally older and seemingly quite conservative. I preached a great sermon that night and was glad God had enabled me to do that. At the end of the meeting, a little old lady approached me. She was shrunk with age, quite slight, and very grey. She seemed pleasant, and I thought of her as a kindly old lady who was probably anticipating her funeral service. She took my hand and told me that at the start of the meeting she had the impression of a large chip on my shoulder. She decided to pray for me, and by the end she saw it was gone. That shocked me. This woman didn't fit my profile at all. She was far more spiritually aware, far more proactive, and far more about spiritual business than I would ever have guessed. I had to stop being condescending to older people. I had to realize that any one of them could be a powerhouse of prayer, deeply theological, rich in godly character, or proven by a life of faith-filled living. At the same time, I had to realize that children and youth could well be much more in touch with God's voice in their life than I would expect. Ordinary-looking men and women could be just about any place in walking with God and being ahead of me in awareness of what God is doing. It's the old "don't judge a book by its cover" story. We tend to create our favored pigeonhole categorizations and try to fit everyone into them if we can. The reality is that everyone is a unique person with a unique walk with God. We don't know what that is unless God shows us. So we are best to approach people with open hearts and without shoving them into some preconceived idea of who and what they are. Not all youth fit your idea of what youth are up to these days. Not all ministers are like the ones you have defined in your head. Not all elderly people live for the same things, and not all businessmen have the same set of values. Your danger is in judging others, which invokes God's judgment on you. Luke 6:37 warns, "Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Let me point out that one way we are judged is by being denied the good that person can be to us. I've had to consciously remind myself to be more open to people than I might naturally be. I'm getting better at it, and at times I really enjoy the surprise of finding more about people. I often chat with people who are in random service roles, such as those stacking supermarket shelves or carrying bags in a hotel. I discover that some are funding themselves through some pretty serious academics, or creating their own music in their backyard, or starting some business or other. People are often quite surprising. At the same time, in church, I find that some very ordinary-looking people have a deep hunger for God, a rich love for various Bible topics, a great care for certain types of needy people, much experience in witness or service that I wouldn't have guessed, and so on. I've also found needy people who've been much more open to getting helped and who have surprising past experiences to draw on. A key for me is to take each person as they come and to find out who they are and what God is doing in their lives. I have to remember some key Bible truths, such as that God treats all people equally. Acts 10:34 says, God is no respecter of persons. God loves each of the people I meet as much as he loves me or anyone else. And God invites everyone, including these people, to enjoy all the salvation God offers. John 3:16 says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. God's plans for these people are as wonderful as his plans for anyone else. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans I have for you, plans for good things and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. So, friends, open your heart to all those around you, and all those God sends your way. Remember that God loves them and wants them to enjoy every spiritual blessing. So, as you walk with God, connect with God's people, and reach out to those around you, be sure you have the right attitudes and don't pigeonhole people. God bless you.